While polished shoes click against the marble floors of Washington, D.C., a different sound echoes across the dusty plains of northern Nigeria. It is the sound of heavy gunfire and the desperate screams of villagers fleeing for their lives. How can a nation's top security expert discuss strategic partnerships in America while his own backyard burns out of control? Today, we peel back the curtain on a diplomatic mission that masks a terrifying reality on the ground, revealing a deep disconnect. In the heart of the American capital, a high-stakes meeting unfolds between a seasoned Nigerian security chief and influential Western leaders. They speak of regional stability and intelligence sharing, surrounded by the opulence of international diplomacy. But thousands of miles away, the fragile peace of the Sahel is shattering. The disconnect between the boardroom and the battlefield has never been more glaring, as reports of fresh massacres begin to filter through the encrypted lines of communication held by the elite. Inside the hallowed halls of power, the air is thick with the scent of expensive cologne and old books. The Nigerian security envoy presents a vision of a modernized military, capable of thwarting the growing insurgency. Across the mahogany table, American officials nod, their faces etched with the calculated neutrality of career diplomats. It is a world of handshakes and press releases, a stark contrast to the mud brick homes and iron-scented air of the terrorized Nigerian countryside at sunset. While the cameras flash in Washington, the shadows grow longer in the forest of Borno and Kaduna. Reports from Truth Nigeria indicate that even as the security expert speaks of progress, insurgent groups are consolidating their grip on vital trade routes. The terror is not a distant memory, it is a living, breathing monster that devours the peace of the innocent. Villagers live in constant fear, never knowing if tonight will be the night the motorcycles arrive under the moonlight. The relationship between Nigeria and the United States has always been a complex dance of necessity and suspicion. Washington views Nigeria as the linchpin of African security, a vital partner against the spread of radical ideologies. However, this partnership often overlooks the internal rot of corruption and tactical mismanagement. The meeting in Washington is meant to solidify ties, but critics argue it is merely a PR exercise designed to appease international donors while the local population suffers immensely. Deep in the bush, the reality is far more brutal than any briefing paper can convey. Insurgent fighters, hardened by years of conflict, move with a terrifying efficiency that mocks the official reports of their defeat. They are well-armed, well-funded, and increasingly bold. While the expert discusses synergy in Washington, these groups are busy setting up illegal checkpoints and taxing the very citizens the government claims to protect. The sovereignty of the state is being challenged daily. Investigative journalists from Truth Nigeria have documented a disturbing trend. As high-level visits to the West increase, so do the frequency of attacks in the rural north. It is a paradox that points to a failure in grassroots security. The focus remains on heavy weaponry and international optics, while the basic safety of the Nigerian farmer is ignored. This investigation reveals that the intelligence shared in Washington rarely trickles down to the soldiers on the front lines. Washington, D.C. is a city of monuments and secrets, where the fate of nations is often decided behind closed doors. For the Nigerian security expert, this trip is about securing drones, surveillance tech, and political backing. But for the people of Plateau State, the only technology they see are the rifles pointed at their chests. The contrast is a haunting reminder that in the game of global politics, the lives of ordinary citizens are often reduced to mere statistics. Publicly, the rhetoric is one of hope and cooperation. Speeches are delivered about the enduring bond between the two nations. Behind the scenes, however, the Nigerian envoy must answer for the mounting death toll that contradicts his narrative of success. How can he justify the millions in security spending when the outskirts of the capital itself are no longer safe? The pressure is mounting, both from a skeptical American administration and an increasingly angry Nigerian public. Just days before the Washington meeting, a massacre occurred that the world barely noticed. In a remote village, dozens were killed in a calculated raid that lasted for hours without any military intervention. This is the terror abounds that Truth Nigeria speaks of. It is a relentless cycle of violence that thrives in the absence of accountability. While the elite toast to their partnerships, the soil of the North drinks the blood of those forgotten. Military experts point to a catastrophic failure of intelligence and response time. The Nigerian army is stretched thin, plagued by logistics issues and a lack of morale. In the meeting with U.S. officials, these failures are often minimized or blamed on a lack of equipment. But the truth is more complex. It involves a systemic breakdown where the safety of the citizen is secondary to the preservation of power. The soldiers on the ground feel abandoned. The economic impact of this insecurity is staggering. Nigeria's food basket is being emptied as farmers flee their ancestral lands to escape the slaughter. This has created a ripple effect, driving up food prices in cities like Lagos and Abuja. While the security chief discusses trade and investment in D.C., the foundational industry of his country, agriculture, is being systematically destroyed by terror. A nation that cannot feed itself cannot be truly secure, regardless of its military alliances. Advanced weaponry is often touted as the solution to the insurgency. Drones, night vision goggles, and high-tech rifles are requested in every diplomatic meeting. Yet, history has shown that technology alone cannot defeat an enemy that lives among the people. The insurgents use the terrain to their advantage, disappearing into the bush before the military can react. The reliance on foreign tech often serves as a distraction from the necessary hard work of community policing and building local trust. Corruption remains the elephant in the room. Vast sums allocated for security are rumored to vanish into the pockets of officials, leaving the men on the front lines with rusty weapons and no boots. In Washington, this issue is touched upon with diplomatic delicacy, but the reality is a cancer eating away at the nation's defense. The security expert represents a system that many Nigerians no longer trust, creating a void that the insurgents are only too happy to fill. Internally displaced persons camps are swelling across the country. Thousands of dark-skinned African families are living in squalor, having lost everything to the violence. These camps are a testament to the government's failure to protect its people. While the security envoy enjoys the hospitality of the American elite, his fellow citizens are sleeping on plastic mats, wondering if they will ever see their homes again. The human cost of this security crisis is truly immeasurable and heartbreakingly visible. International aid often flows into Nigeria, but much of it is directed toward the symptoms rather than the cause. The meeting in Washington is part of this cycle, seeking support for the aftermath of terror rather than addressing the root grievances that fuel it. Poverty, lack of education, and marginalization are the real recruiters for the insurgency. Until the security strategy includes social justice, the cycle of violence will continue, no matter how many high-level meetings are held in D.C. Who is the man representing Nigeria in these talks? A career officer with decades of experience, he is a master of the bureaucratic game. He knows how to speak the language of the West, using buzzwords like stability and counterterrorism to secure his goals. But his critics at home describe him as out of touch, a man who views the war from the safety of a fortified office rather than the blood-soaked heart of the Nigerian countryside. The fear is no longer confined to the rural north. Major cities are now on high alert as kidnapping for ransom becomes a nationwide epidemic. The terror has evolved from a localized insurgency into a criminal enterprise that affects all levels of society. Even as the security expert assures Washington that things are under control, the residents of Abuja are fortifying their homes. The sense of vulnerability is palpable, casting a long shadow over the nation's future and prosperity. Women and children bear the brunt of this unchecked violence. They are the ones kidnapped from schools, the ones who lose their husbands to the night raids. Their stories are rarely heard in the polished conference rooms of Washington. Truth Nigeria has given a voice to these silent victims, documenting the trauma that will haunt generations. The security expert's mission is measured in weapons and treaties, but the true measure of success should be the safety of a child. There is a growing call for a radical shift in strategy. Some argue that Nigeria should look inward, focusing on local intelligence and community defense rather than foreign intervention. The Washington meeting represents the old way of doing things, relying on external validation and equipment. But as the terror abounds, it is clear that the old way is failing. A new generation of Nigerian thinkers is demanding a security architecture that prioritizes the citizen over the state and its international image. The global lens is shifting. With the rise of Russian and Chinese influence in Africa, the U.S. is desperate to keep Nigeria in its orbit. This gives the Nigerian security expert significant leverage in Washington. He can play the superpowers against each other to secure the best deal. However, this geopolitical game does little for the villager in Kaduna who just wants to live through the night. The high-level maneuvering often distracts from the immediate and urgent need for protection. The future of the Sahel hangs in the balance. If Nigeria, the giant of Africa, cannot secure its own borders, the entire region is at risk of collapse. The terror that abounds is a warning sign of a much larger fire. The Washington meetings must be more than just diplomatic theater, they must result in tangible changes on the ground. The world cannot afford for Nigeria to fall, but the current path seems to lead only deeper into the abyss of conflict. As the security expert concludes his visit, the disconnect remains. He leaves Washington with promises of support and perhaps a new shipment of hardware. But back home, the funerals continue. The truth, as reported by those on the front lines, is that the war is far from over. The terror abounds because the solutions are being sought in the wrong places. The real battle is not in the halls of D.C., but in the hearts and homes of Nigerians. The flight back to Abuja will be long, filled with the satisfaction of a successful diplomatic mission. But as the wheels touch down on Nigerian soil, the reality of a nation under siege will remain. We must ask, are these high-level meetings a genuine path to peace, or merely a performance for the global stage? The answer lies in the blood-stained soil of the North. Subscribe and join us as we continue to demand the truth for Nigeria in these trying times.